All right, Lucas, we're up to guide 17, the 2003 Sixon Cebulian. Again, that's not the real name of the car, but that's fine. So we'll start off with this story car and then just kind of see where we end up if we're going to do anything additional in this particular guide. But let's go ahead and read the story. Hey, it's me again, Johnny. Today I have this sports Sixon for you. Rust isn't sparing this model, especially when it's not kept in the garage. It stood between the cactuses, so it looked as if it drowned. Even though the bodywork is up for complete renovation, the mechanics don't look bad. The owner was a fireball who drove it like there was no tomorrow and probably heated up the engine. Of course, he didn't have the time nor the ambition to take care of it, and he abandoned it. Please tidy it up, and I will think that will manage to sell it as the perfect example. Mileage will not arouse suspicions. I'm waiting for your call. See you. Repair or replace body panels. Change the oil. Every story car so far has had an oil change. Spray it the factory color, and there'll be some other tasks for us. So let's go ahead and take this particular order. All right. Well, that car looks, rusted as all get out and dirty as heck. Let's just see if there's any other tasks that we want to take. Here's a 25% bonus credit. 25% bonus credit for Hammerdale. Lacks engine power, timing needs replaced. There'll be the other task, and it doesn't start. 25% bonus credits. Might be something to think about. But, anywho, let's go ahead and move this story car to the car wash first. Go ahead and wash the car, knowing that we're going to have to paint it. And again, because we're just nice mechanics, so we do this for folks. And we'll go ahead and detail the interior for him as well. Alright, now let's check the order. Oops, sorry. Go to car status, check the phone. So we have 3 pages of undiscovered parts. Body panel, left headlight. Oh, it's missing the left headlight. Okay. Left side mirror. Yep, doesn't have it. So let's go to it looks like this guy just wants us to replace the panels that are missing. So I'm going to go to assemble mode, and I'm going to add pieces that are missing to our shopping list. And I think that'll take us everywhere we need to go for this car as far as the repair or replace body panel issue. Alright, let's just go to the bodywork station. Left headlight, right headlight, left side mirror, rear window, tail light, and the other tail light. And we'll just pop into, well, we're still in assemble mode. Go ahead and put on these new panels that we just purchased. Alright. That fixed that order part real easy. Change brake fluid, coolant, power steering, windshield washer, headlight alignment, and wheel alignment. So while we have it here, let's just go ahead and change out those fluids real quick. We'll go to our drain tool, drain the coolant, drain the brake fluid, and we'll drain the coolant. Drain the power steering fluid. I think they said change windshield washer fluid, not just fill it. So, alright, so all the fluids are drain. Then we just unmount the caps. Unmounting the caps to fill in the fluid. There's that. Coolant. While we're filling that coolant, just look at that engine head. It looks pretty rusted. The caps on the top of the shock absorber there, those look bad. Just kind of eyeballing the car as we're going here and thinking of things that we may or may not have to address. The fuel filter looks pretty rusty. We're doing an oil change, so I'm pretty sure the fuel filter will be bad. Alright, so this is set up. Let's see, will the car start? Okay, we'll start, so we can do a compression test. That's why I picked that one first. Alright, so we have bad pistons and a bad crankshaft. Okay. Do the onboard diagnostic scan. We kind of went out of order from what we've done previously here. That stuff tests out okay. Okay. Let's check the electro digitals. Oh, we got a couple of bad ones. Battery and the radiator fan housing is bad. Now the battery is going to be easy to fix. We'll just pull it and we'll take it over to the charger. Fan we'll address here in a second. Tread tester. See how the tires look. 90, 88, 88, 90. So the tires are fine. Our car left sitting between cactuses. Those are pretty nice tires. And then we'll just check the fuel system. Well, it can't be started because I just pulled the battery. Put that back on for a second so I can do the fuel system test. I think the fuel filter, just looking at it, looked bad. But we'll see. Fuel filter and the fuel pump. Okay, so that gives us some more data. Just for kicks, let's take it to the test path, knowing that we have to do an alignment of the lights and the well, we can't start the engine, dang it, but we can go ahead and do the alignment since we're already here. If we end up having to pull too much suspension parts, we might end up having to redo this, but that's fine. It doesn't take too long to do an alignment, at least in the game. In real life, probably takes much longer than this. Okay, that side's aligned. That light is good. Change to the right light. And again, this dark light, you just want to get it just below the line. Actually, getting it where I would think it would be centered is not aligned. It's actually right there. Okay, so that's aligned. Got our car status. The other tasks are done. Spray it with factory paint color. Drain and refill the oil. We have a fair number of the parts already discovered here. Let's just go to examine mode and we'll just do the quick examine of parts. Looks like we got bad fuel injectors below the intake there. See, those suckers are popping up red. Check the air filter system. Yeah, there's radiator fast fan housing. We tested that with the electronic digital meter, and that was a bad fan. We're going to have to deal with that. Okay, let's check the suspension system on the driver's side front. And driver's side, or drinker's side front. Actually tests out okay. Cross member. Looks okay. Exhaust. Tests fine. The rear cross member. Looks okay. Driver's side cross member. Or suspension in the rear. A lot of green actually on this car. That's different than a few of the other story cars that we've worked on. It's just a little few seconds here to get this information. Let's go to normal mode, check our car status. There's still a fair number of parts we haven't discovered, but I think it's going to be primarily in the engine where we're going to end up finding problems. So let's move it to the lift, and we'll go ahead and pull the motor. Hey, buddy.
Wow.
We're doing the 17th video for you guys, tutorial here. We're recording right now. You're on the video. Yeah, there you are, Peanut. And we'll drain some fluid.
Ow.
Hang on now.
Hi. Unani, compadres.
All right.
Hello. Ow, yar.
All right, we're gonna move that back.
Wow.
All right, we're moving that back. And we're gonna take the oil filter off. We know that part's bad. Now, probably since we have so much engine work to do, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the engine out of the motor, out of the car. So to do that, typically you have to disconnect the front exhaust, and we'll have to take off the transmission because the transmission sits on the, or connects to the front of the engine. This is a front-wheel drive car, so to be able to get the trans off, you have to pull the drive shafts, which means you got to pull the wheels and the front drive axles. Now this may seem like a bunch of other steps, but honestly, it's just easier, in my opinion, to work on an engine on the engine stand versus working on the engine underneath the car, especially when you have piston work to do, because you have to raise and lower the engine a few times to be able to get to it. Speaking of raising and lowering the engine, this is that 4-cylinder engine that the starter you cannot access above the car. You have to access it from the engine bay. Since we're also in the engine bay, we know we have to do the radiator fan, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. Let's see, radiator fan, housing fan. Buy an oil filter while we're at it. Go to the main car parts store. Radiator fan, housing fan, and an oil filter. Okay. And we can just mount up that radiator housing fan. So that part's fixed. And let's get her up in the air and take the trans off so that we can pull the engine. Alright, so the trans is out. Drop the engine down, or drop the car down. We'll run over here to our cherry picker and we'll pull the engine. Okay, the engine's out and the mechanic's carrying it. And let's pop over here. Oh, we gotta pull the battery again, because the battery needs to be charged. So we got that charging. Let's go over here and install the engine on the stand, and I'm just going to tear this engine down. Knowing that we have a fair number of parts that need to be repaired. We got to get this head off. Pretty sure we have bad injectors here. I'm going to go ahead and pull the front. The alternator actually looks fine. Just eyeballing it. The power steering pump looks fine. But I want to pull the front just so that we can get to the camshaft. And we'll have to take the head off anyway, so we have to pull this front components off. Get the belt tensioner, pull this belt, pull this idler roller. Water pump actually looks fine. That camshaft pulley looks really good, actually. So we might just end up having to pull just the head and the pistons. I'm not really identifying each part as I'm going here, partially because we've done this engine particular engine before. So we should be pretty old hat at pulling this. This is the one that has a timing chain on the front and the back of the head, and it's got dual cams. Get the turbo off, and the exhaust manifold. That clutch plate looks fine. The clutch pressure plate, camshaft, and the flywheel looks fine, so we don't have to address that on the backside. Let's get the camshafts off. So we'll get the camshaft bearings. I think they're actually called camshaft caps. I keep calling them bearings, but it's essentially a bearing. Alright, pull the camshafts, camshaft, and then we can pull the head. And then we're going to rotate the engine, pull the oil pan. Okay, and then we can pull the crankshaft bearings, or bearing caps probably. And we're going to pull the pistons and the rod caps. Hopefully there'll be some of these parts that we can actually repair versus having to just purchase replacements. Since our mechanic is maxed out, as long as these parts are above 10%, we'll be able to repair them. Which just saves you some money. Pistons, piston rings, those are wear items, so they can't be repaired. The crank, oh shoot, we are going to have to take off the clutch plate, clutch pressure plate, and flywheel so that we can get the crank off, knowing that we have to replace the crankshaft. Alright, now we can pull the crankshaft. Alright, so the rest of this looks fine, so we're not going to pull the rest of the motor out. As far as repair, we can repair the fuel injectors. That's nice. And again, the minigame, just stop it in the green. Okay, the throttle, timing cover we don't have to replace. Camshafts are fine. So let's just replace this rod cap. That way we don't have to remember which rod cap was good and which ones were bad. The rest of this I'm not going to bother repairing because they're not parts that need to be repaired. Alright, so now let's sort by condition, putting the bad ones at the top. There we go. So we're going to need 4 pistons, 1, 2, 3 rod caps, crankshaft bearing, intake manifold, 1, 2, 3, 4 piston rings, new engine head, fuel filter, crankshaft. Alright, so that should be our parts list. Go here to our car parts shop. 4 pistons with connecting rods. 3 rod caps because we were able to repair 1. Couple of crankshaft bearing caps. Intake manifold. 4 piston rings. Engine head. Fuel filter. And a crankshaft. Alright, so all these red parts, actually I'll just use the max cell here and we'll sell everything that's below 30%. Then we can go to part mount, put on a new crankshaft, toss in the new pistons with their new piston rings, crankshaft bearing caps, crankshaft bearing cap, rod caps, rod caps, and we put on the oil pan and the new oil filter, and we can look behind the engine, put on the flywheel, clutch plate, clutch pressure plate, and a new bearing, fuel filter, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate the engine. And we'll pop up here, put the head on, and camshafts, piston or spark plugs, excuse me. Kind of get in a little closer. We'll put on the camshaft caps, or camshaft bearings if you prefer. I prefer. Right, engine head cover. And those ignition coils. And we'll swing around to the front of the motor and we'll get on the camshaft bearing, or cam gear, idler rollers, belt, timing belt, and a belt tensioner. Then we put the timing cover on. Crankshaft pulley, and another belt, and an idler roller. Ready? Alright, swing around to the other side and get the other cam gear on. And the cam gear chain, or timing chain. Another cam gear. Timing cover. Swing to this side. I'll get underneath this and get these injectors on. Then the intake. And the throttle. Then we'll get to the opposite side and get the exhaust manifold on and the turbo. Okay, so we have reassembled and repaired our engine. Let's take it off the stand, take it over to the cherry picker, install it back into the car, move that back, we go ahead and add some oil. Alright, got some oil. Check the dipstick. right on the hashies. And pop this up in the air. We can rehook up the trans. Okay, drive shaft, drive axles. And the bolt for this sits right in the middle of the wheel. So even though you're behind it, you can click right where the bolt's at and it'll attach the bolt for you, or the mechanic will. So let's check our list. So there's still 4 parts that are not discovered. Okay. Now looking at this car, one thing we identified as we were working or cleaning up the car, look at the top of this rod cap and look at the rust on the ABS module. Now, I'm just guessing these might be parts that are bad. Let's go to part unmount. I'm going to go ahead and unmount this shock absorber. 67%, but I think that cap is bad. So if I go in here, front shock absorber cap. So I was right. Just by eyeballing it and having played this enough, I could tell you that that part looked bad. Let's do the same on this side. Let's take this one off. And go to our car status, front shock absorber cap. So I know those are bad. Now to get to just the cap, go over here, separate parts. We'll separate that shock absorber cap. You can go straight into your car store. Front shock absorber caps. Right there on page 2 by 2. And I'll separate the other one. It's off. Then we can go to join parts. So the shock's 88%, so that's fine. The spring was 88, and then a new shock absorber cap. Take that off, and then we'll do the same thing. Shock, spring, cap. Spring them together. And take that off. Then we can go back over to our car, and then we can put the shocks back on. And the end link. And I'll go ahead and put the wheel back on. Okay, that side is done and back together. Let's pop over here, put on that shock, and end link. And pop on the wheel on this side. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to pull the battery off the charger. Put the car down out of the air. Excuse me. Click on this, go to part mount, put the battery on, and then we can put the starter back in place. Go to car status. So we need to do a fuel pump. Oh, and look at this too. If we go back here to excuse me, the fuel pump, look at the fuel tank. I'm going to pull the pump. Let's just pull the tank. Well, we got to have her up in the air to pull the tank. That tank looks rusted. And that's one that if you went to part examine mode, you see how the tank's still in gray, it's not identified. So I'm just going to click on the fuel tank and remove it, and the fuel tank is bad. If we go to car status, one part's not identified, but the fuel tank and fuel pump are bad. So if we go to our store, I'm just going to type in fuel. There's a fuel pump. If I scroll down, there's a fuel tank. Go to part mount, put on the new fuel tank and a new fuel pump. So that fuel system aspect there is addressed. And there was that other part in the engine bay, that ABS module, that looked bad. So to test on this, now we could take it to the test path and test the brakes now that the car will actually start. But I'm just going to pull the part and inspect it. ABS pump 25%. ABS pump. That was the last part to identify. Now this, since it's at 25%, I'm going to take it over here. It's one we can actually repair. And I think I put the 100% starter on this car, the one that we had. So I'm going to go ahead and repair that starter. And let's repair the ABS pump. The module we'll just leave alone, since the customer is happy with an 88% module. Go over here to part mount. Put on the new ABS pump that we just repaired. Put on the 6 bolts here. Okay, that is done. So now really all we have to do is spray it factory color. So if it was me, I would have repaired all these body panels first, but we're going to be spraying over rust, but that's fine. So we'll go to the paint shop. Click on our paint shop. Factory color is white, so we're going to highlight that and hit paint. Go to car status. And all the components of the order are grayed out. It's a $14,000 job. Let's finish the order. Oh shoot, we forgot to put the exhaust back on. That piece that we had taken off to be able to pull the motor. So we have to pop that in the air to put that front exhaust piece on. My bad. My bad. Should have been doing that when we put the trans back on. So just click in here, part mount, put that exhaust piece back on. Then I can right click on the car and we can still complete the order. All right, so that order is done. I heard a beep. We have just leveled up and we have a case. Let's go ahead and open the case, see what we got. We'll just start with 1 and 2 again. Start fresh. Barn map and some credits. Go ahead and add that barn map to our list, and we'll sell these broken parts that can't be repaired. Save the game. And let's just check on our mechanic. We have 6 available skill points, so we can go ahead and get our last mechanic skill that increases our speed of removing parts, which is fast hands. All right, so our mechanic is leveled up pretty well. The next one we'll get is just Eagle Eyes to reduce the time that it takes for us to examine parts, and then the very last skill point allotment will be making the mechanic run faster. We have 5,500 bucks. We could buy some other parts here, but at least for the guide series, we're going to hold off on that for now. I'm going to go ahead and save this game. This will be enough for this particular story car. Let's go ahead and check the orders. The next story car is a 2003 Ripson Z530. It's a Nissan. They actually have other cars in the game that are Nissan, but apparently this one they didn't get the permission to use it. That'll be where we'll pick up is the 2003 Ripson Z530. Thanks for your attention, Lucas Isaac Parker. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.